Hello, everybody. My name is B Yang or Cher Teng Yang, and I have been teaching at Fresno State, the California State University of Fresno, for the last 25 years. Uh, and today I'm glad to present to you what is shamanism. At Fresno State, I teach my specialization teaching whether it's about cultural diversity and oppression. And so with that, cultural diversity oppression connected really well to any other element of cultural practice. I teach the undergrad and also the graduate courses. And also now I'm teaching specialized on the Hmong mental health. And so my training is training social workers, both undergrad and also graduate, to become more sensitive toward cultural diversity and oppression client population that dealing with social services in the county and in the government. You know, part of the really rewarding in my job is that in the field of social work, cultural diversity and oppression, people really open-minded and people wanting to learn about others. But first, you have to know who you are. We teach students to know who they are, where they came from, how do they get here, so that when they work directly with client in a different background, different diversity, they understand client's situation. And so throughout my journey that come back to learn about the Hmong culture, I done as a faculty, I done a lot of research about a lot of authors who wrote about Hmong. For example, many books that wrote in Hmong languages or translate from French into English. When I do my master thesis, I also done a lot of research about Hmong culture, Hmong background, and Hmong ritual. All those research connected me in the very research base, but I want to find out furthermore in the practice. And so that's why when I come back to learn Hmong culture in 2000, that connect me to many Hmong International invite me to China. And those are much more hands-on experience field research. When I got into China, I actually got into the villages that my ancestor came from China to Southeast Asia. They actually took me to places that really resonate to the Hmong culture that in the research. And so that hands-on experience, that travel, you actually be there in the land, in the mountain, that you feel much more different than just reading the book. And then that really connected my passion from the field research to the literature research and then to the community practicing today. And then that allowed me to modify this system to the younger generation today and to the mainstream today. What is shamanism? Those are questions that I've been asked all the time. And my own experience, my father, my grandfather, it's a shaman, and my great grandfather was a shaman. My mom was a shaman, so I grew up with the shaman family, and the shaman that I understand that shaman is a healer, and where we came from, we don't have all the healthcare provider. We don't have anything else. So shaman become the medicine person in the village, become the spiritual healer of the village, and become the helper in the whole village. And so in today, in my practice in the Hmong community in 40 years in Fresno and Central California here, my observation is that probably about 70% of the Hmong in the United States still practice shamanism. And then the other 30% will convert it into either Christian or any other religion that they feel comfortable with.
Okay, perfect.
My experience with shamanism, and I've been asking throughout United States and also out international to present a lot of shamanism. So with many of those workshops that I present, and my research found out that a lot of writers, a lot of researchers describe shamanism as the consider first the very first religion on human that people practice. So with many of that research indicated that shamanism not only exists in the Hmong community or the Hmong ethnic group. Shamanism in the ancient time, in the old day, exists everywhere. So for example, the Hmong, majority Hmong in America that came from Laos. In Laos, the Laotian, the lower land Laotian also practice shamanism. They have their own shaman. The Mien also have their own shaman. The Khmer also have their own shaman. And I experienced those shaman before because we live among the village. My travel to China in 2010, and part of the cultural research in China, a lot of scholars in China present that shamanism in China is considered as the central religion practice over in China. And so a lot of books pointing out that the origin of shamanism, some of the book claim that it's originated from the Tungal ethnic group in a very early time, and it's heavily influenced by the Siberia region, and so a lot of researchers also point out that the Hmong coming to that part of the world as a migration that shaman also practice. And so shamanism not only exists in the Hmong community, but it exists in many other ethnic group community as well. The shamanism in each ethnic group, it's a little bit different. There's a lot of parallel, not exactly, but there's a lot of parallel. In Native American, I think that Native American and the Hmong, that's very, very close together. And same thing as the Hispanic community, the Guantandero, they also have very similar to that particular shaman. So Native American also in the spiritual and the soul system that connect to the Native American community and the Hmong community have much more parallel that together. Okay. Shaman, one of the shaman is that a lot of things that it's not something that you can learn or individual can learn. Shamanism it's a process called, you have to be called by the shaman spirit or the shaman master, or you are the chosen one by the shaman master or shaman kingdom, because the shaman master know that you will be the good healer to other people, and that's why you are chosen. Now in the chosen process, how do you know that you are chosen? In the Hmong community, a lot of people that have very bizarre illness, particularly in my mom's case, she have a symptom very similar to asthma attack. But every time I took her to the ER in Fresno Community Hospital, they couldn't find nothing. The blood work, everything come back normal. And many times in the second year that I took my mom there, my mom been there probably more than 20 times, then the healthcare provider, the hospital, start telling me that you need to go back and do Hmong culture. We couldn't find nothing with your mom. And that is when we actually really take seriously to return back to consult with the Hmong culture shaman master. And selection process is not easy. It's not that every master will match you. And so that selection process become a very long, lengthy process. Maybe you have to find your match. And so that is another layer of being chosen by the shaman spiritual system. Teacher, right? Yeah, finding the right teacher. The use of animal in shaman practice go back in a very ancient time. In a very ancient time, animal, and in the shaman's spiritual system, in the shaman, that mankind and animal are taking turn in the spiritual system. So, in other words, you become human once, you have to go reincarnation to 12 different kind of animal before you come back to human. So then as an animal and human, will you take turn to support each other in the spiritual realm to survive? So when somebody gets sick, then shaman were asking the animal spirit to protect the human spirit in the spiritual system so that this person will will not get sick on earth. And when that person die, then he will also go through that 12 different kind of animal to protect. Now the animal that they finish their turn, then they'll become human. So there is a rotation in the spiritual system. So it's not to just sacrifice or any other thing, but the meaning of using animal in the shaman system is deeper than today's society, today that people understand. The Hmong really believe in the reincarnation system or cycle. And that came through the 12 animal. It came through the shamanism. So in other words, the Hmong really believe in the spiritual system, the physical system. So to enter spiritual system, come back into physical system, then that's go through birth and death. So when you die, then your body turns to ashes, but your soul will recycle through the reincarnation cycle to the next body and to become the newborn. Now, but before you reach the newborn cycle, then you have to go through these 12 different animals before you come back, because as a spiritual system, in the shaman system, you have to take turn to support each other in spiritual world so that you survive. And so the reincarnation system is part of the Hmong culture go around. Shaman also go around reincarnation. Birth and death also go around reincarnation. And because of reincarnation, that's why Hmong funeral and wedding ceremony become very important to follow step by step, to not missing, to be much more appropriate, so that you're around a reincarnation before come back to him, and again it's quicker, so that you don't get too stuck somewhere too long to come back. That's why the ritual, the funeral lasts a couple of days, and waiting and the shaman are the helper between to navigate any other system if somebody got stuck somewhere in the spiritual system. When you reincarnation through death, then you will come out through birth to become your descendant in the future. And that's not only, and so you become your grandchildren. You become your reincarnation back into as your grandchildren in the family. The shaman, it's really dependent on the individual, because the shaman, let's say when in the process, when you got chosen by the shaman spirit and you identify that you were chosen, like I said, how do you identify? It came through illness, came through bizarre health issue that maybe medical health provider could not really figure out what it is. And then now you identify as the chosen one. Somebody will never come out of that chosen process. And because he's dealing with both the spiritual of himself or herself, and also himself and herself in the physical part. And somebody don't have the mental capacity to handle the spiritual system, that they will not be able to become a real shaman, and that can help the community. But if somebody who are really mentally, physically, emotionally ready to be shaman, then that individual will come out to the practice quicker. Okay. People normally go asking shaman if health issue arrive, or through dream, or through any bizarre situation that happened to them, like an unusual circumstance. For example, some families, suddenly you have a lot of, let's say if you have a bird come to the house, if you have a lot of things that unusual that happen to you and you don't feel good about it, your gut's feeling that maybe something spiritually wrong, then normally people will go for shaman. Or if somebody who persisting on an illness for a long time, or they get advised by the medical provider said, we can find nothing wrong, but that condition continue to persist, then normally family will turn to shaman and say, can you come to find out what's wrong with their spiritual system? And once again, if they have dream that connected to ancestor, that it's very bizarre, that bothered them, they normally go asking shaman to perform a shaman to check with the ancestral spiritual world, see if anything that unbalanced in the spiritual system to that individual. A lot of time, if your ancestor in a spiritual system who need to communicate with you, then a lot of time between the spiritual system and the physical system, in the Hmong belief is that communication mostly through illness. And because you don't have verbally communication, you don't have that emotional connected anymore. So what through illness? That somebody family gets sick, then because then that's part of the communication. And shaman become the lawyer, become the interpreter between the spiritual and then the physical. And that's why they normally go consult with the shaman. Now, in other circumstances, for example, let's say if you go out in the mountain and you come back home, or let's say you go play in the lake and you come back home, you go picnic, you come back home, you get sick, and then you can also go to the shaman said, and the shaman might find out something like, oh, you got sick because your son or you don't know, and you've broken the original spiritual property, and now they're asking you to fix certain thing. They're asking you to pay them back to fix their property because you broke them their property. That's why you see a lot of Hmong. Let's say that you go to the mountain, like I go to Lost Lake. People advise their children don't throw rock in the lake, because they believe when you do that, you will damage the original God in the water, in the lake property. And when that happens, then that original spirit will hold one of your spirit in their prison system until you go fix it. And that's where illness came. So the communication through the spiritual to use that, they will cause your illness. And when the shaman come into perform it, shaman find out, oh, okay, because that's what you did. And that's why shaman had to make a deal with the original spirit, say, hey, what do you need to be fixed? And the spirit said, the original spirit might say, well, I need a chicken, I need a pig, I need money paper, I need many this. That's where the bargain start. So shaman can act like a lawyer in their cases, how to settle the case. And when that bargain, that deal made, then shaman will tell the original spirit or whatever that spirit said, hey, this is the bargain. In a 3 day, if this person get well, walk outside, eat well, live well again, no function as normal, I come back to pay you. But if not, then you're lying to me. I don't owe you anything. And so those actually the shaman communication, every deal that they made, they have to sell the deal in that way. So the shamans not practice alone. The shaman have their tool as a guiding tool, as a protection tool, and as a tool that to commute and to support them through their journey in a spiritual system. There is a ring, we call it zining. Zining, it's a ring of, you see a bigger metal ring that have a stick that sharp in, it's just so you can punch a hole on the ground to stand up. So the zining represent the universe. That circle, that whole circle represent the universe. And those little circle along with that big metal ball, that circle, and those little circles represent the universe, like the earth, the moon, the sun, along the whole universe system. Shamans believe to have that power to commute between different universe in a very short time to really find out what the problem with this human body, and to find out which evil spirit that are causing this. So that is the magic power that the shaman has. So the zining is always a tool that he can travel through the universe. He can grab them in just a minute to really assess what the problem is. Now the gong, you can see the gong, same thing. The gong always in circle. That circle really represents the universe. The gong also represents the universe, and the sound of the gong, when they hear the sound of the gong, supposed to be an announcement to the whole universe that shaman came. Here the shaman came. The shaman came in peace. The shaman came find solution. The shaman came here to help on both sides, to find out to find solution for the issue. And so the gong is always an announcement that coming from. Now you can see the shaman will have a piece of cloth cover his or her face. I think we call it well, and the well, I could pronounce it right, but that ti hao, we call ti hao in Hmong. The ti hao is very much a protection for the shaman through all the evil spirit. So it's just like a police officer that they have their God shield to guard them for any of the harm environment. Now, the pig and the chicken and the goat, although has a different ring in the spiritual system. Depend what spiritual that harm or hold the human spirit. Depend what the bargain is. And so a lot of shaman not just sacrifice an animal the way they want. That have to be demanded by the evil spirit when they first. So a lot of times shaman will come to your house. They will come to Wanang Shai. I mean, just like a doctor, diagnose first, see what caused it. And then through that diagnosis with the spiritual, if the spirit say, hey, this is what it costs, I need this to fix this point. Then shaman will make the bargain, then they will come back and say, oh, to fix it, we need chicken, we need a pig, we need this. And then so it really depends. So it's not just a pig. Now, when you see a lot of things that people just use pig, though it's like an annually renewal for the elderly, that's regular shaman, then those pig, it's much more because pig it's much more in the universal animal that can protect human spirit through that. And it's much more a peaceful animal that can settle in any circumcision. But for example, like in goats, like a chicken, like a dog, and other animal, it's a very, very special system. I mean, circumcision that demand by certain spirit that shaman have no choice, have to do a different way.
9 out of 10 are going to be bua,
right.
But sometimes, depending on the unique circumstance,
right.
then it calls for a higher
end. Bua and chicken. And the other thing I also want to point out is that shaman also very flexible. Now, because there's something believed about physical and spiritual system is that shaman can also practice, not necessarily just sacrifice animal. They can use rock, they can use a chair, they can use, according to my interview, many other shaman, and according to Taseng and Joseng, the main shaman there is about 4. So the very first one is called Neng Zi Zheng. Neng Zi Zheng is to believe, and in China the same way. The words my recent China saying the same thing, that Neng Zi Zheng it's part of the descendant. That if your grandparent becomes shaman, the shaman spirit will have to come choose one of his descendant. So from generation to generation, it's called Neng Zi Zheng. So your family linear has that, then you normally would be the chosen by the spirit. The other, it's called Neng Shao. Neng Shao is like a fortune teller, that you, like a psychic, like you able to see things, tell future. That also considered as Neng, but we call Neng Shao. Now, and the other thing is, the other brand is called Neng Pak He. Neng Pak He, it's go, and there it's a different, just like a highway. For the regular Neng, the Neng Shao, normally go through the traditional way of death and dying to figure out the spiritual system, to figure out what it costs. But Neng Pak He go direct through. Another word, Neng Pak He is a specialized, if somebody really sick, and Neng Zi Zheng coming in, couldn't really cure, couldn't really find out what's wrong, then they will normally go Neng Pak He. Neng Pak He doesn't go through spiritual system at all, but they go right through the dead spirit gateway to really find out, see if this body is so already there or not. And support like a much more specialized investigator to just want focus on the death gates only.
And then just rephrase it, but people get called to that, right? I mean, they only specialize in that type of Neng, or you can't do a whole bunch, or do people do all of them?
A lot of time people who know Neng Pak He doesn't know how to do other Neng. Because Neng Pak He, it's not called, it's not chosen by any spirit. But Neng Pak He, if you and I can really test, see we have Pak He, that we can go. Pak He is it's a spirit that can take anybody through the path. But your body has to be suitable. Hmong we call Nya. In other words, if you have heavy bone, you have heavy body, then you could not go through. Somebody have lighter soul can go through. Pak He can take them with Pak He. So Bokeh become like the shamanism have a shaman spirit, Kuning. And then the Bokeh is actually the spirit Bokeh that take the physical person like this, like me, and go through. So often question asked about the differences between shamanism and ancestor worship. To me, ancestor worship is a little bit separate from shamanism. As far as the role of shamanism, the shamanism I see as the legal system between spirit and physical world. That the shaman can go between regional God and all the creation God and connected to him and also connected to the ancestor. So because shamanism had that ability, then they can also help the family in the physical way to communicate to their descendant, to the ancestor. And so, but ancestor worship consists of anything that you practice with ancestor people that before you that already in the spiritual world, not with you anymore. So in other words, a lot of Hmong believe ancestor worship. Ancestor worship is this: when you are frightened, when something happened to you, you always call your ancestor spirit to protect you. That is another example of ancestor worship. That you depend on your ancestor. For example, before one of your family will go to surgery or you run to a dead end and you're totally hopeless, you are called upon mom and dad, or if mom and dad already died, or your ancestors say, hey ancestor, I'm here, I'm run to this issue, can you protect me, can you guide me out of here? And can you protect me so that I don't get any sicker or I don't get any other trouble?
Or help pass this.
Poor health. And so those are ancestor worship. But shaman is somebody who are much more loyal that go between the spiritual system to the human system. And so loyal can help family connected to the ancestor, as well as can help problem solve between human spirit and conflict between human spirit and then the spiritual system. So to me, shamans really separate from ancestor. Ancestor worship